When I first got into table tennis, I had no idea that sponge hardness could make such a big difference in rubbers. I'd just pick a rubber that was cool, sounded cool, or was recommended by my friend, and I didn't care how the hardness of the rubber would affect my performance. If you're new to this topic, I'm going to break it down for you, and then we'll get into what type of rubber you should buy. So let's begin. The hardness of a rubber. What I mean when I say that is, so you'll have a rubber sheet on the top and then you'll have a sponge below the rubber sheet. This creates a whole rubber, and the hardness of the sponge below the rubber top sheet is basically what I'm talking about, the hardness of a rubber. And there's actually a way to measure how hard your rubber is. It's called the ESN scale. The scale ranges from 30 degrees to 55 degrees in general. You'll find a few softer and a few harder, of course. For example, a softer rubber like the 𝗕𝗲𝗏 would be somewhere in the low 40s. You know, you can never be exact with these things, even if the company tells you what it is. And something like the MXD might be in the low 50s. So the MXD is going to be a harder rubber than the 𝗕𝗲𝗏. And at first, I had no idea how important this was. I just assumed like, they're just numbers, get me a good rubber. And then when I actually started paying attention to the hardness of a rubber before I tested it, I realized that my shots are coming off different. It just feels different, and it's important to know what you want. If you have no understanding of what a soft and a hard rubber is, then you won't know what to pick for yourself. So anyway, let's talk about softer rubbers. Softer rubbers are going to give you more dwell time, which may feel like you're adding more spin, and they're going to give you more control as well, a higher margin for error. You'll miss less shots with a softer rubber in general. With soft rubbers, you'll feel like the ball sticks on the racket when you play your shot longer. This is nice because it feels like you're generating more spin. And what's important is not the spin you're generating, but the fact that you can feel the ball, which I feel is pretty important when you're starting out. And obviously your blade will play a part in that, but that's not what this video is about. So yeah, in general, softer rubbers, higher margin for error. This might help you with your short game, your blocking. You're going to get more balls on the table in general is what I'd say. If you value control, spin, feeling over pure speed, then yeah, you're probably going to go for a softer rubber. And if you're playing recreationally or just starting out, softer rubbers are great because obviously the higher margin for error, but you're also going to get a larger sweet spot. You won't have to worry as much about overhitting or just mishitting the ball. More balls will go onto the table. At the beginning, I also felt that soft rubbers helped me with my looping just because I could feel the ball more. It's a very particular feeling, and you have to try it a couple times to know what I'm talking about, but obviously I can't give you that feeling because all I'm doing is talking. If you're starting out, building your technique, building up your game, you can't really go wrong with a softer rubber. And obviously there is nuances, and I'm talking within reason. You're not going to go buy a 𝗕𝗏 at this day and age. But if you're a year into your development, still getting a hang of your strokes, getting better, improving, then you know a Vega Europe or a 𝗕𝗲𝗏, that might not be the worst option. Another great thing is for people in general that like lighter rackets, the sponge is less dense and there's less weight in the sponge. So the racket's going to be lighter, the rubber's going to be lighter, and if that's what you're into, it will make it easier for you to swing your racket. I know people that do like heavier rackets as well, like they feel it helps with momentum, but it's up to you, it's personal preference. So let's talk about hard rubbers. Even before trying them, I knew that, you know, this is going to be a rubber that's going to rebound the ball straight away. I'm not going to have as much time on the ball as I did with a softer rubber. And that is true. Harder rubbers are usually associated with more speed. Yes, you're going to be able to create more power, but there is a few things you have to keep in mind. In most cases, you need much more precision using a harder rubber than a softer rubber. Now, I know by now, people that know what they're talking about will go crazy in the comments. You can't be so one-dimensional, so let's go. Here's what's so interesting about hard rubbers. They're not all made the same. Some of them are tacky. These are known as Chinese style rubbers. These can give you spin in a way that European style rubbers or softer rubbers with less grip can't give you. These rubbers have a very, very different feel from European or Japanese style traditional rubbers, say the Vega Europe, Vega Pro, 𝗕𝗲𝗏 series. With these tacky and hard rubbers, you'll still get great speed and power when you hit the ball hard, but what you get when you hit the ball not as hard is a lot more spin and a lot more control. The grip of a tacky rubber, the dwell time of a tacky rubber, it's pretty much unmatched. You can't really find anything else like it in table tennis. Some of you might be wondering that, oh, why don't they just produce soft rubbers with a tacky surface? Wouldn't that create so much spin? And in theory, yes, but where are you going to get your power from, you know? You could hit the ball really hard, but why not just bottom out, stick to your racket? And I'm sure there are softer, tacky rubbers, but nothing like a 𝗕𝗲 Europe sponge on a Hurricane 3's top sheet. Nothing like that. I just couldn't imagine how that would work, you know? And keep this in mind, in general, harder rubbers are more direct and linear. You won't have as much clearance over the net. There are some special cases though, like 𝗏9𝐶, K3, those are going to have a higher arc, but you know, the Hurricane series, it's very direct, very linear. MXD, very direct, very linear. The harder rubbers, you're not going to have as much safety when you play. So in totality, harder rubbers are going to produce more power, more spin in some cases, but you're not going to have as much safety as a softer rubber. Harder rubbers will be heavier because the sponge is more dense, that's what makes it hard and heavy. And harder rubbers will bottom out less and you can hit harder with them and continue to get more and more quality. At a certain point you can hit hard with soft rubbers, but they just won't give you that same output. That's why I prefer to use a harder rubber on my forehand. Why does this make so much sense? It's because on the forehand I'm a stronger player, like most players. I like to hit harder on the forehand and quote-unquote control on my backhand. Parry the ball back, rarely play an extremely strong shot. There's less of a hitting zone, less of a margin for error on the backhand, and a softer backhand rubber is going to make up for the deficit in those things. And one last thing I want to mention is that don't get confused by the different scales of DHS and ESN, European Japanese style rubbers. Butterfly, MXP, 𝗏𝗏, Andro, they're going to use a different sponge hardness system to DHS. So yeah, be aware of that. I would say in general, 38 degrees on a DHS hardness scale is probably around 50 ESN. So a 38 degree Hurricane 3 might be a similar hardness to probably a Rosanta R50 if that even exists. Is it 51 or 49? I don't know. That's how I like to think of it. Yeah. So yeah, those are my 2 cents on the hardness of a rubber. Let me know what you guys think. And wait, hang on. Let me just show you my racket just for whatever. So MXP is what I'm using on, I don't even know if you can see that with this camera. I'm using MXP on the backhand. I consider this a softer rubber compared to what I'm using on the forehand, which is a Hurricane 3. Hit larger, stronger shots with the forehand and softer ones with the backhand. I think this pairing suits me quite well. And yeah, you know what? Let's boost the algorithm. Comment your setup in the description, please.